Welcome. This video provides concise, expert-level answers to 50 key technical interview questions for the role of IT systems engineer focused on end-user computing and Microsoft productivity services. These cover Microsoft Intune, Entra ID, conditional access, Microsoft 365 governance, security, patching, automation, and operational scenarios. Let us begin. Section 1. Microsoft Intune and Endpoint Management, Questions 1 to 15. Question 1. What is Microsoft Intune, and how does it fit into Microsoft Endpoint Manager? Answer. Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based unified endpoint management solution that manages devices, applications, and security policies across platforms. As of 2026, Microsoft has consolidated branding under Microsoft Intune, which incorporates capabilities previously associated with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, including co-management with Configuration Manager for hybrid environments. Question 2. Explain the difference between MDM and MAM in Intune. Answer. MDM, or Mobile Device Management, provides full control over the device, including settings, remote wipe, and compliance enforcement. MAM, or Mobile Application Management, focuses solely on protecting corporate applications and data without controlling the entire device, making it ideal for bring your own device scenarios. Question 3. How do you enroll a Windows device into Intune? Answer. Enrollment occurs through Settings in GT, Accounts in GT, Access Work or School in GT, Connect, assuming automatic enrollment is configured. Alternatives include the company portal application, Windows Autopilot for zero-touch provisioning, or bulk enrollment methods. Question 4. What are configuration profiles in Intune, and give examples? Answer. Configuration profiles are policies that apply device settings and restrictions. Common examples include device restriction profiles, Wi-Fi and VPN configurations, endpoint protection settings for antivirus and firewall, and administrative templates that mirror group policy for Windows. Question 5. Describe how compliance policies work in Intune and their impact. Answer. Compliance policies establish rules such as minimum operating system version, encryption requirements, or jailbreak detection. Devices failing these rules are marked non-compliant, which can trigger conditional access blocks, notifications, or restricted access to corporate resources. Question 6. How does Windows Autopilot work for zero-touch deployment? Answer. The device is pre-registered in the Autopilot service. Upon first power on, it joins Entra ID, Intune automatically applies profiles and applications, and the enrollment status page displays progress to the user. Question 7. What is the difference between required and available app deployments in Intune? Answer. Required deployments install applications automatically on targeted devices or groups. Available deployments list the applications in the company portal, allowing users to install them on demand. Question 8. How do you deploy Win32 apps in Intune? Answer. Package the application using the Intune Win App Util tool to create an Intune Win file. Upload it to Intune, specify install and uninstall commands, requirements, and detection rules, then assign the app to groups. Question 9. Explain proactive remediations in Intune. Answer. Proactive remediations consist of PowerShell script pairs, a detection script and a remediation script, that run on a schedule to identify and automatically correct common issues, such as clearing temporary files or enforcing specific registry values. Question 10. How do you handle device lifecycle management in Intune from provisioning to retirement? Answer. Provision devices with Autopilot, assign policies via dynamic groups, monitor compliance and health through reports, plan hardware refresh cycles, and perform retirement or wipe actions directly in the Intune portal. Question 11. What is scope tags in Intune, and why use them? Answer. Scope tags enable delegated administration by restricting what an administrator can view or manage, For example, tagging devices by department to limit visibility and control accordingly. Question 12. How do you monitor device health and create dashboards in Intune? Answer. Leverage endpoint analytics for insights into device performance and user experience, review compliance and manage device reports, and integrate data via Microsoft Graph API into custom Power BI dashboards. Question 13. Explain update rings for Windows Update for Business in Intune. Answer. Update rings configure deferral periods for feature and quality updates, include options to pause deployments, and support approval workflows to manage rollout pace and risk. Question 14. What are delivery optimization settings in Intune? Answer. Delivery optimization controls update distribution methods, such as peer-to-peer caching, group identification, and bandwidth throttling, to minimize wide area network consumption. Question 15. How do you troubleshoot a policy not applying on a device? Answer. Review the troubleshooting pane in Intune, verify device sync status, examine event logs under Microsoft Windows Device Management Enterprise Diagnostics Provider, and confirm policy assignment and targeting. Section 2. Entra ID, Azure AD, and AMP. Conditional access, questions 16 to 25. Question 16. What is Microsoft Entra ID, formerly Azure AD, and how does it differ from on-premises Active Directory? Answer. Microsoft Entra ID is a cloud-based identity and access management service supporting authentication, single sign-on, and conditional access. Unlike on-premises Active Directory, which relies on LDAP and Kerberos, Entra ID uses modern protocols such as OAuth and OpenID Connect. Question 17. Explain conditional access policies and their components. Answer. Conditional access policies consist of assignments targeting users, groups, or cloud applications, conditions evaluating location, device state, or risk, and access controls that grant, block, or apply session restrictions such as multi-factor authentication or sign-in frequency limits. Question 18. How do you implement Zero Trust with conditional access and Intune? Answer. Enforce compliant and managed devices through Intune compliance signals, mandate multi-factor authentication for high-risk sign-ins, block legacy authentication protocols, define trusted named locations, and apply risk-based policies. Question 19. What are device trust models in Entra ID? Answer. The models are Azure AD registered, Azure AD joined, and hybrid Azure AD joined. These states are evaluated in conditional access to require compliant or hybrid joined devices for access. Question 20. How do you manage identity lifecycle in Entra ID? Answer. Utilize Entra ID lifecycle workflows, dynamic group membership, SCIM-based provisioning from HR systems, and periodic access reviews to automate onboarding, changes, and offboarding. Question 21. What is Privileged Identity Management, or PIM, in Entra ID? Answer. Privileged Identity Management provides just-in-time elevated access to roles, incorporating approval workflows, time-bound activations, and audit trails. Question 22. Explain risk-based conditional access. Answer. It leverages Entra ID protection signals, including sign-in risk and user risk levels, to trigger actions such as requiring multi-factor authentication, forcing password changes, or blocking high-risk events. Question 23. How do you configure named locations in conditional access? Answer. Navigate to Entra ID and GT, Security and GT, Conditional Access and GT, named locations in the portal, then define trusted IP ranges or countries for inclusion or exclusion in policies. Question 24. What happens if a conditional access policy is in report only mode? Answer. The policy logs potential enforcement outcomes without applying blocks or grants, allowing safe testing and impact assessment before full activation. Question 25. How does Entra ID integrate with Intune for device-based policies? Answer. Intune continuously reports device compliance status to Entra ID, enabling conditional access policies to evaluate and enforce access decisions based on that compliance state. Section 3. Microsoft 365 Productivity Services, questions 26 to 35. Question 26. What key Microsoft 365 services do you administer as an end-user productivity owner? Answer. Primary services include Exchange Online for mailboxes and anti-spam protection, OneDrive for storage and synchronization, SharePoint for site management and permissions, and Teams for collaboration. Question 27. How do you secure and govern OneDrive for business? Answer. Apply sharing policies, data loss prevention rules, sensitivity labels, retention policies, and conditional access restrictions to prevent access from unmanaged devices. Question 28. Explain SharePoint site governance best practices. Answer. Implement hub sites for consistent navigation, use site templates, enforce least privilege permissions, minimize breaking inheritance, and apply retention and information protection labels. Question 29. What are retention labels and policies in Microsoft 365? Answer. Retention labels classify content for mandatory retention or deletion periods, such as 7 years. Policies apply labels automatically or manually and support legal holds for compliance. Question 30. How do you implement sensitivity labels for document protection? Answer. Create labels in Microsoft Purview, define protections including encryption, watermarks, and content markings, publish them to users and applications, and configure auto-apply policies. Question 31. What is DLP in Microsoft 365, and how do you configure it? Answer. Data loss prevention identifies and protects sensitive information such as credit card numbers or social security numbers. Configure policies in Purview to scan Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, with actions including block, notify, or encrypt. Question 32. How do you manage Exchange Online mailbox permissions? Answer. Utilize role-based access control roles, delegate full access or send as permissions, and prefer shared mailboxes over direct delegation where feasible. Question 33. Explain co-authoring in SharePoint and OneDrive. Answer. County authoring enables real-time collaborative editing in Office web and desktop applications, provided modern file formats and appropriate permissions are in place. Conflicts are resolved through version history. Question 34. How do you enforce secure external sharing in SharePoint and OneDrive? Answer. Configure organization-level sharing settings to anyone with the link, or specific people only, require authentication, set link expiration dates, and enforce guest access expiration. Question 35. What KPIs would you track for Microsoft 365 productivity services? Answer. Key performance indicators include service availability, user adoption rates measured by active users, storage consumption, external sharing incidents, data loss prevention matches, and overall compliance score. Section 4. Security, Patching, Automation, and Operations, questions 36 to 50. Question 36. How do you manage patching for end-user devices? Answer. Deploy Windows patches via Intune update rings, manage third-party applications through Win32 app deployments or scripts, and integrate Microsoft Defender vulnerability management for prioritization. Question 37. Explain vulnerability remediation process for endpoints. Answer. Identify vulnerabilities through Defender and Intune reports, prioritize based on severity and CVSS score, deploy mitigations or patches via update rings, verify remediation success, and report ongoing compliance. Question 38. How do you align endpoint configurations with Zero Trust principles? Answer. Adopt an assume breach mindset by requiring multi-factor authentication, enforcing compliant devices, applying least privilege access, and performing continuous verification through conditional access and Intune. Question 39. What automation tools do you use for Intune and Entra ID tasks? Answer. Primary tools include PowerShell with Microsoft Graph API modules, Azure Automation Runbooks, and Logic apps for workflow orchestration. Question 40. Give an example of using Microsoft Graph API with PowerShell for Intune. Answer. Authenticate using Connect MG Graph, then retrieve managed devices with Get MG Device Management Managed Device, or create a configuration profile using New MG Device Management Configuration Profile. Question 41. How would you automate user onboarding and provisioning? Answer. Combine Entra ID lifecycle workflows, Intune autopilot for device setup, dynamic groups for assignment, and Graph API scripts for automated license assignment and device registration. Question 42. What is Microsoft Graph API, and why is it useful here? Answer. Microsoft Graph API is a unified REST endpoint for accessing Microsoft 365, Entra ID, and Intune data and services. It enables bulk operations, custom reporting, and advanced automation beyond the administrative portals. Question 43. How do you create operational runbooks and documentation? Answer. Maintain centralized documentation in SharePoint or OneNote covering escalation paths and troubleshooting steps, utilize Markdown in Azure DevOps for version control, and perform structured knowledge transfer sessions. Question 44. What SLAs and KPIs would you define for end-user services? Answer. Target device availability exceeding 99%, patch compliance above 95% within 30 days, priority 1 ticket resolution within 4 hours, and user satisfaction scores greater than 4.0 out of 5. Question 45. How do you handle vendor relationships for devices and productivity platforms? Answer. Negotiate Microsoft 365 licensing agreements such as E3 or E5, maintain hardware vendor standards, and drive cost optimization initiatives including storage right-sizing and license reclamation. Question 46. Scenario. A user reports OneDrive sync issues on a non-compliant device. How do you troubleshoot? Answer. First, verify conditional access policies blocking non-compliant devices, check compliance status in Intune, review OneDrive sync logs in %local app data %Microsoft OneDrive logs, and confirm the device is Entra ID joined. Question 47. Scenario. You need to block access from high-risk countries. How? Answer. Create a conditional access policy. Under conditions, select locations, exclude trusted named locations, and block access for the specified high-risk countries. Question 48. Scenario. How do you plan a Windows 11 refresh? Answer. Conduct compatibility assessments, pilot deployments using autopilot rings, configure update rings, monitor endpoint analytics, and execute phased rollouts with stakeholder communication. Question 49. Scenario. A critical vulnerability such as print nightmare affects endpoints. What is your response? Answer. Assess business impact, deploy immediate mitigations such as registry keys via Intune configuration profiles, apply patches through update rings, monitor deployment progress, and remediate remaining non-compliant devices. Question 50. Scenario. You need custom reporting on Intune patch compliance. How? Answer. Query data via Microsoft Graph API using beta endpoints for reports, export results to Power BI for visualization, or utilize built-in endpoint analytics compliance dashboards.